A Maryland man will remain behind bars in Aruba as police continue to investigate the disappearance of a woman from Frederick. A judge ruled there is enough evidence to hold 50-year-old Gary Giordano for at least another 16 days. Prosecutors believe Giordano is involved in the drowning death of his companion, 35-year-old Robin Gardner. Giordano told police that Gardner never returned after the two went snorkeling. Well, attorney Steve Allen with Hodis Peston & Katz joins us with a look at the case and what each side needs to do in order to prove their point. Good morning.
Good morning, Patrice.
All right, so he is being held still. What kind of evidence is there to hold him? I mean, it all seems very much right now. It's just that his story is changing a lot, so maybe that's enough to say, well, let's hold you.
In Aruba, we're dealing with law based on Dutch law, which is based upon the Napoleonic Code. And as a result, the burdens of proof are very different than in the U.S. All they need now to hold them for up to 16 days is reasonable suspicion, where in the U.S. they would need probable cause. The changing of stories, there's apparently an eyewitness out there who claims that he saw them together at a time which would make it impractical to have gone snorkeling and for her to have disappeared that way. Those things are sufficient under Aruban law to hold them, but they still have to prove more after the 16 days.
Right, so what would they need? By the end of the 16 days, what do they need, or what does the defense need to say, look, my client's out of here?
After 16 days, they need some evidence to establish there's a real basis to believe that he did wrong with this woman. Now, defense lawyers under this legal system have a much different role than in our system. Most of the questioning is done by the judges. Most of the investigation is done by the judges. Defense lawyers are only given very limited rights to cross-examine. So at this point, it really is a judge and prosecutor run proceeding.
Is some of the outside information that we're hearing about him now, does that even factor in the fact that his former wife had protective orders against him, that there's a teenager who says he wanted to pay her to do a modeling trip to Aruba? He was going to pay for her all expenses. Does any of that factor into this at this point?
Probably not. It would not necessarily be admissible in the U.S. unless he raised the issue of his character. This is really character evidence. There's apparently some evidence out there that he's been abusive to women in the past, and that would suggest, at least to most people, that something happened. But whether that's admissible under the Dutch law is a real tight question.
So if they don't find a body, or if they don't find some, smoking gun after these 16 days, he's going to be out of there.
I suspect they'll hold him for the additional 60, just based upon changing of story and some potential eyewitness testimony. But beyond 60 days, after the 16, whether they can hold him and charge him and then convict him is really problematic.
All right, Stephen, we'll keep following. Well, coming up, it is packed with protein and fiber, but how tasty is store-bought hummus? Consumer Reports puts them to a taste test. That's coming up next. 6:53 is the time. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News, all local, all morning.